I sit in a dim chamber of my thoughts, and I write this lament as if it were a song of sorrow for a dream that has been stolen by the cruel hands of Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości, Administracji Lublin. I arrived from a cold ex-Soviet land with a suitcase full of hopes and a bank account that sang of wealth. I believed that a name that sounds important would cradle me with care. I was wrong. My first encounter was a promise of admission that felt like a golden ticket. Yet the very next day, the embassy sent a letter of visa rejection on the 12th of October 2017. I called the university and they told me that a new date would be given, that a new reason would appear. This is why it is terrible. A promise that cannot be fulfilled leaves a student stranded, forces the purchase of tickets that will never be used, and drains the spirit with endless waiting. It also wastes money that could have been saved for tuition or family needs. I asked for the tuition that I had already paid to be returned to my account. The university responded with a phrase that my number is on queue. Day after day, I was placed on a queue that never moved. This is why it is problematic. A queue that never ends means the student cannot recover the funds, cannot pay other obligations, and must watch the balance shrink while the institution hoards the money. It reveals a lack of accountability and a greedy intention to keep the cash forever. The pattern repeated when another student, a brother named Shub, was refused on the 15th of March 2017. He also waited for a refund that never arrived. The same phrase was repeated, "Your number is on queue." Repeating the same empty excuse shows that the administration does not listen, that they have rehearsed to avoid responsibility. It also shows that the institution values the illusion of process over the real need of students. I entered the 6th semester, and I discovered that some lecturers would disappear after a lecture, leaving my grade empty, like a hollowed coin. When I asked the registrar for my scores, they told me there was nothing they could do. They demanded money to rewrite exams that I had already passed. This is why it is disastrous. Without recorded grades, the student cannot prove achievement, cannot graduate, cannot apply for a job or further study. Forcing extra payment to rewrite exams that are already completed is a clear exploitation of vulnerability. The university also failed to collect grades from professors. I was told to write to each professor myself to beg them to send my results to the school. This is a betrayal of duty. A university is supposed to be the hub that gathers academic records. When it does not, the student must waste time and energy and may be forced to repeat a semester because the school shows a lack of credit. This creates a cascade of stress, financial loss, and a feeling of being trapped in an endless loop of payment. Emails sent to the administration were met with silence or with replies that addressed a different question altogether. I sent many messages over 4 months, each one ignored or answered with irrelevant information, as if the staff could not read the words. This is why it is a grave flaw. Communication is the lifeline of any service. When it breaks, the student feels invisible, helpless, and loses trust. It also signals a staff that is either incompetent or indifferent. When I called, the phones rang and rang, but no one picked up. The staff seemed to hide behind a wall of bureaucracy, sending me from one department to another, each one claiming the next would help. This endless referral is a tactic of avoidance. It wastes precious time, creates frustration, and shows that the institution lacks coordinated support. It also indicates that the staff are either poorly trained or deliberately avoiding responsibility. I was promised a program in public relations, yet a week before my flight, I received an email that
The program did not exist and that I would be placed in management instead. I had already paid the tuition fee, the application fee of $100, bought a ticket, and secured a flat. Changing the field of study at the last minute destroys the student's career plan, forces a shift in interest, and may lead to a degree that does not match the original ambition. It is a betrayal of contract and an example of how the university puts profit above integrity. The university took my original certificates and refused to return them, making it impossible for me to leave. Holding a student's documents is a form of hostage-taking. It prevents the student from applying elsewhere, from proving previous education, and adds a layer of psychological control. This practice is unethical and illegal in many jurisdictions. All these grievances share a single core. The institution cares only for money and not for the student. When the focus is solely on tuition fees, every service degrades, every promise becomes a lie.
I am looking into crimes near Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości CI Administracji Lublin, and I feel a heavy sigh every time I think about it. You know, businesses near Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości CI Administracji Lublin are often small shops that rely on tourists buying souvenirs, snacks, and simple gifts. They usually have bright windows and polite cashiers, but that kindness can be taken for granted by people who want to cheat. One of the most common tricks is the souvenir banknote scam in brick-and-mortar stores. A man would hand a counterfeit 100 zloty note that had the word souvenir printed on it, and the cashier would accept it because the note looked like a regular bill at a quick glance. Tourists who are not familiar with Polish money often do not notice the extra inscription and walk away with a receipt and a worthless note. The police found at least 7 cases of this happening near the area of Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości CI Administracji Lublin. What probably happened after the victim left the shop? They most likely tried to use the note later and discovered that the shop refused it, feeling embarrassed and worried about losing their money. That experience could make them distrust the local market and maybe avoid buying anything else, which hurts the honest merchants. The scammer was arrested, and I imagine the court will give him a long sentence because he also possessed a machete and a stun gun, which shows a dangerous side. He will probably spend many years in prison, and his possessions will be seized, so the police hope that no other tourists will see the same trick again. The shops near Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości CI Administracji Lublin will likely become more careful, checking every note closely, because the community does not need more sadness from visitors like us.
The businesses that crowd the pavements around Wyższa Szkoła Przedsiębiorczości Administracji in Lublin feel like a practical joke played on anyone who arrives with an empty stomach, a wish to dance, or simply the hope of being treated like a human being. I have walked the circuit for you, notebook in one hand, dignity in the other, and I can report the following. Every cash desk here is a tiny casino where the house always wins. Every smile is rented by the hour, and every customer first sign should come with an asterisk that says terms and conditions apply, mostly disappointment. Let me begin with the shopping center they call Lublin Plaza because it is the closest thing the campus has to a living room. The building itself is bright, glassy, humming with pop music, but step inside and you will notice the hum is actually a lullaby for your wallet. Parents push prams toward a children's playground that looks sweet until the plywood splinters and 3-year-olds leave with red palms. Security guards treat a phone pointed at a tray of fries like a weapon of mass documentation. One tourist simply wanted to show his wife the lunch he was about to eat and was told to delete the evidence or leave the country, more or less. Up in the food court, McDonald's sells iced lattes that taste like milk that once read about coffee in a book, and the KFC counter occasionally hands out chicken with the texture of a rubber eraser. Parking is a treasure hunt without treasure, hundreds of cars circling, yet inside the corridors feel half empty, as though the tarmac were hiding a secret basement full of motorists kept hostage for ransom. In short, the plaza is a mirage. It promises convenience, delivers splinters, cold fries, and a guard who looks ready to frisk your camera. A 5-minute stroll away stands Mandragora, the so-called Jewish restaurant that wears heritage like a rented costume. The menu reads like a grandmother's cookbook translated by someone who never met her. A couple celebrating a birthday was shown to a table that doubled as the coat rack when they begged to move. The staff explained the bigger table was reserved for ghosts, apparently because it stayed empty all evening while the birthday girl walked out in tears. A man who actually grew up on gefilte fish tasted the 38 zloty version here and said it was the worst of his life. 2 pale fingers of flavorless paste lying on a leaf of lettuce like exhausted swimmers. Salmon appears in a shade of white. The chef insists is still salmon, just more white than usual, a sentence that makes biology teachers cry. Wine arrives in quarter glasses for the price of a half bottle elsewhere. The waiters, lovely at first glance, evaporate when you need them, as though paid by the minute they do not speak. One guest was parked on a sofa so deep he needed a crane to reach his soup. Heritage is a beautiful thing, but here it is wrapped in indifference and sold back to you at a markup that feels almost like cultural pickpocketing. If you still have the energy to dance, Club 30 waits around the corner with the warmth of a bouncer who has read the dress code in a dream and will not share the details. Wear cotton shorts that look sporty and you are sent home wear elegant jogging pants, and you are still sent home wear a hoodie even if it costs more than a suit, and you will stand outside while girls in glittery tights glide past. One man drove 150 kilometers, only to be told his trousers were too trekking for the beat. Inside, the DJ plays songs so slow the dance floor feels like a group therapy session in which nobody has the courage to speak. A roaming photographer pops up like a private detective, snapping shots nobody asked for, while security guards patrol with the enthusiasm of teachers on playground duty, reminding you that fun is permitted only when they blink.
The club sells itself as 30 flavors of nightlife, but the real flavor is anxiety, lightly salted. Should you need a calm coffee after all this, Parzona